We are continuing to read from Called to Serve, Autobiographies of Don and Doris Ann Roth. So I am reading chapter 3.
Volume, we ought to have volume 1.
Well, we have section 1, which is Dad's section.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second half of the book, section 2, is your section that you wrote. So this is chapter 3, Mother, Matilda Gatz Roth. Unfortunately, we have very little information on Mother Roth's early days in Europe. We do know that she was born in Meschivo, East Prussia, formerly Plock, or Russia in parentheses, on December 24, 1893. Her birth village is now part of Poland, but there are cities named Meschivo in 3 different locations in Poland, 1 near Warsaw and 2 in the west. How can there be 3 cities named the same in the same country? Wow. Well, I guess that's true. Like Portland is Portland, Maine, and Portland, Oregon in the U.S. Matilda Gatz belonged to the large family of John and Marie Guhel Gatz, members of a local Lutheran church. What?
G-A-T-Z.
G-A-T-Z. She had pleasant memories of her early childhood and youth. However, her birth mother died when Matilda was 8 years old, and her father subsequently remarried a small but capable woman named Matilda.
Matilda. T-H.
Yep. M-A-T-H-I-L-D-A.
Mm-hmm.
John, Matilda, and the younger children, Gustav and Andrew, migrated to Russia in 1914, where the father worked in a coal mine. John died there in 1917. All right, here's a photo. I'll read the caption. Mother Matilda Gatz Roth's first available picture with her family taken in Europe. Mm-hmm. She is standing in the center beside her father, John Gatz, and stepmother, Matilda. Her younger brothers, Gustav and Andrew, are at the left. And here is the photo. At the time of Mom's departure for America, she had a stepmother in her home and had to work hard to help care for her younger siblings. The winds of war scattered the close-knit family group. Mom's 2 older sisters, Bertha and Augusta, preceded her to the United States. During that period, many Europeans felt the pressures of finance as well as war and looked to the other side of the globe for relief. Here's a photo. Mom had 2 sisters, Augusta left and Bertha center, with Mother at the right. And there's the photo. Mom leaves home. Matilda left home in May 1914 at the age of 21 and boarded the ship Kaiser Wilhelm der Grosse from Bremen, Germany, which arrived in New York on
B-R-E-M-E-N.
Yes, B-R-E-M-E-N, which arrived in New York on May 21, 1914. Okay, now I want to look what date. Okay, so my grandpa Roth arrived in Ellis Island on June 10, 1914, and my grandma Roth on May 21, 1914. Wow, just 3 weeks before Grandpa Roth arrived at Ellis Island. She experienced the same immigration procedures that Daniel did on Ellis Island, although she was there first. After her clearance, she took a short ferry ride to the New Jersey side of the Hudson River and then took a train to Cleveland. Her sister Gusta met her at the railroad station and took her into her home on Valley Road. Gusta had become a Seventh-day Adventist after arriving in America and attended the 14th Street German Church in Cleveland. On her very first Sabbath in America, Matilda went to church with Gusta. Several months after her arrival, Matilda received the rite of baptism and became a member of the church. The pastor at that time was Elder C.W. Weber, who became a lasting friend of the family. She attended a Sabbath school class being taught by a handsome young man by the name of Daniel Frederick Roth, also a recent immigrant from Europe. So here's a photo. Mom and Dad Roth shortly after their marriage in 1916 in Cleveland, Ohio. Marriage of Mom and Dad Roth. She studied her Sabbath school lesson during the week and had a thorough knowledge of the subject when she arrived at church every Sabbath morning. The teacher naturally took an immediate liking to this new attractive young lady. After a close association of 1.5 years, they arranged a small wedding in the home of her sister Augusta on November 30, 1916. Matilda Gatz became Mrs. Daniel F. Roth, and thus began a marriage that was to last for 59 years. Early years in Cleveland and Clinton, Missouri. She soon discovered that her new young husband wanted to become a minister. She joined him in this desire. They worked hard in Cleveland to save their funds in order to go away to school. The opportunity came in 1919, so this is 3 years after they got married, when they moved from Cleveland, Ohio to Clinton, Missouri to attend the Clinton Theological Seminary, at that time the only German Adventist seminary in the United States. They worked and struggled hard to get through school. He did house painting and she took in laundry. With a growing family and full-time theological studies, Daniel and Matilda worked hand in hand in order for him to get the necessary education for his chosen life work. On May 23, 1925, Daniel received his degree from Clinton Theological Seminary. William B. Oakes, or Ox, O-C-H-S. Is that Ox or Oakes? I'm thinking Ox, who later became president of the North American Division of the General Conference of Seventh-day Adventists, presided over the school at that time and gave young Daniel his diploma. He congratulated Mrs. Roth as well as Daniel as she stood beaming by her husband's side. Family growth. In the meantime, during their stay in Clinton, their family was changing and growing. Margaret became the first of the children on January 23, 1919, in Cleveland. Herbert Frederick appeared in Cleveland. Marge. Yeah. Herbert Frederick appeared in Cleveland on May 23, 1920, just before they left for Missouri, but later died in a tragic scalding accident on June 7, 1922, when he was just 2 years of age. Oh, that's awful. Harold arrived on October 27, 1924, in Clinton. Lillian Marie appeared on January 14, 1926, in Cleveland. My younger sister, Esther Marion, showed up in Cincinnati on January 28, 1929. So here's a photo of Mom Roth as most of the family remembers her. And there's the photo. They began their lifetime role in the ministry on December 1, 1925. That's right after you were born. You were born on November 21, 1925. So they started their ministry on December 1, 1925, in the city where they were married, Cleveland. He became a ministerial intern under C.W. Weber. Here's two photos. The left one is titled, Mom and Dad Roth are holding Dawn and Lillian. The location is mostly likely Cincinnati, Ohio. The picture on the right is captioned, Last picture available of Mom before her death, taken in Avon Park, Florida. That's how I remember seeing her. Early pastoral ministry in Ohio. Well, less than a year later, in 1926, the Ohio Conference asked them to move to Cincinnati, Ohio, where he organized a new German congregation. They served in Cincinnati for 10 years and were successful in not only forming a new congregation, but also securing a church building in which the congregation would meet. My early years
would meet?
Yeah. He secured a church building in which the congregation would meet. My early years as a child and youth corresponded with the history of my parents. In 1936, they moved back to Cleveland for full-time service as pastor. Subsequent pastorates included Pittsburgh and Washington, Pennsylvania, where you met, Dad. Brooklyn, New York, Milwaukee, Manitowoc, and Watertown, Wisconsin, and Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Manitowoc?
Manitowoc. Manitowoc. Must be in Wisconsin. A crisis developed while my father served as pastor of the Cleveland, Ohio German Church. A general depression enveloped America at that time, and the Ohio Conference found it very difficult to fund a pastor of a small German church with less than 100 members. So the conference committee asked my father to also pastor an English church. Eventually, he pastored 5 English churches in the greater Cleveland area. Up until that time, we had always spoken German at home. However, as I started first grade in Cincinnati, I had quickly learned English. Marge, Harold, Lillian, Esther, and I all attended the English elementary school in Lakewood, Ohio, a suburb of Cleveland where we were then living. English churches added. I remember with great clarity one day when we came home from school and Father Roth gathered all of us in the living room of our home for a family council. He told us about his new English church assignment. The big problem was his use or non-use of the English language. He had to start preaching in English at least twice each Sabbath. He then announced from that point onward we would all speak English at home, not German. Our knowledge of English would help our parents learn the language of their chosen nation of America. At first, the conference provided a translator for my father, as he spoke in German and the translator spoke in English.
What was his name?
My grandfather? Daniel Frederick Roth. But this changed as my father struggled to prepare his sermons in a language foreign to him. As a child, I remember using the typewriter for the first time as I helped him type up the notes for his weekly sermon in English. That's how I learned to type with only 2 fingers, which he did until his last days. Visitors still spoke German in our home when they visited us. We also heard it in church on Sabbath. From that point onward, we were never required to speak German at home. So to this day, I understand fair amounts of German, but my verbal use is very minimal. After serving in Cleveland, my father received an invitation to go to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania to serve the German church there, as well as the English-speaking Washington, Pennsylvania church. I first met Doris Ann Beringer. That's you. My future wife in this church. She had been baptized by my father and was a member of a church that met for many years in the Odd Fellows Hall on Chestnut Street in Washington, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I remember.
That's an
that.
odd name,
I
Odd
remember.
Fellows Hall. Okay, what do you remember?
It was on the 2nd floor.
Of the Odd Fellows
Yeah, the Odd Fellows Hall.
Hall.
And there were some rooms on the side where the street went down.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. While in Pittsburgh, Father Roth instituted a new plan of worship services. At 9:30 a.m., the young people met in a downstairs chapel for an English worship service, while the Germans had their Sabbath school in the main sanctuary. Then at 11 a.m., the youth had a Sabbath school, while my father held a German church service upstairs. He continued the same plan in New York and Milwaukee. Many of our young people stayed by their home churches in these cities because of this unique worship schedule. Only 3 years later, in 1942, as war clouds again held perilously over the world, my father accepted an invitation to serve as pastor of the largest German church in America, located in Brooklyn, New York.
New York.
Yeah. And that's the end of chapter 3.